welcome to On the Bubble Podcast, episode 116. I'm your host, Basa J. Wait on with me is my co-host Yuki Lee Bender. Today, our topic is gonna be just news in general from Flesh and Blood, and we're gonna have a pretty chill day, just talking about some recent changes for Flesh and Blood. But before we talk about that, we're gonna start with how did you do at PT Singapore? It's been about a week since PT Singapore now, but you're back in Vancouver now. How was your trip?
My trip was great. I went there about a week before with the team. We were testing in person a bunch. We tried implementing some changes with just more focus testing, more meetings, more physical exercise to kind of break things up. And I think overall the changes were really successful. People had good feedback, so it was like a great testing cycle for us. And then PT itself, I played Arachne Slip Through the Cracks. I had an excellent day one. I ended up going 8-0, 5-0 in CC, and then 3-0 in drafting Gravy Bones. I was not the featured drafter in this pod, but I was in the featured pod, and I think my last game is on stream. So the finals match, I'm on stream. So I ended the day 8-0. I was the only 8-0 at the end of day one, so literally as good as it gets. Day two did not quite go my way. I went 1-2 in the draft. I think combination of a bit of a tough seat, some in-game variance, and a misplay in one of my games landed me there. It's like possible I could have 2-1'd. It was sad that I, after going 1-1 and losing my stream game, I got paired into Arthur Trehay, and his gravy deck was just like way better than mine, and he played a chum on turn 0 going first, and then all I could do was attack him for 4 going second. And he just like played an ally every turn, and I did not play an ally very much. The game was just like super cursed.
So that game is just unwinnable then,
That
right?
game was unwinnable. Yeah, the game on stream, I think I made a pretty big mistake where I kind of got focused on denying gold and forgot. Like, I remember the damage output of his turn, but I forgot that he was going to play a Barnacle to do that turn. And I was just like, oh, like my swell doesn't hit a blue on top, so like I can just keep the swell in arsenal and just like clear the Barnacle. But I think in reality I should have not denied gold quite as hard, cleared the Barnacle, and then sent I think it was 6 face. And if I do that, it's hard to say what would happen, but like basically because all I do is clear Barnacle, he gets to keep a big hand, and then he gets a whole bunch of gold and snowballs, and his deck's really good at using gold because he has sloops and barks. So I don't know exactly what happens if I clear and send 6, but I'm more likely to get gold, which is like another problem I have, that I don't have gold and he does, and he's less likely to get as much gold. I think I also like turn 0 could have blocked a little bit differently and kept not angry bones, burly bones, the overpower one, and just gone like burly bones for 6, discard an ally, get a gold right away. And because again, like not having gold in that game really hurt me. So I think between the turn 0 misplay and then the being a bit greedy / forgetful with the swell into the Barnacle, I sort of like wound up really far behind. That game's on stream. It's the second round against Tom, forget his last name.
Okay, so second round of day 2, right?
Yeah, second round of G2.
Yeah,
So
that
yeah,
makes sense.
definitely a bit on my fault. Going on to CC, I got paired into Jimmy Nguyen, who is a friend and teammate of mine. Slippy Mirror. I'm in a pretty good spot. I make a bit of a greedy block on a prognosis, where if he has the Justinic, my hand kind of gets torn apart and doesn't do enough. I get to send to CNC, but it's not great. Whereas if I just block 6 on the prognosis, I forget why, but I'm insulated from a follow up. Like even if it's like a leave no witnesses, I'm fine. I think I can just like armor and give a card and then bonds him back or something like this. But instead, he takes my only stealth card, and then I have mantle and no stealth card. So all I can do is CNC, and yeah, I kind of lose the game from there. So that was disappointing. From there, I do manage to recover and start playing better. I'm pretty happy with my play in the rest of the games. I have a very weird stream game against a Dash IO where I'm pretty ahead. There's a judge call about whether or not he's supposed to have a cerebellum processor. We're both under the impression that they are checking the footage to review whether or not he removed the counter. And the way that the judge communicates it to us, it sounds like the counters where it's supposed to be on the cerebellum processor. So we're like, okay, no problem, continue playing. And then about like 10 minutes later, on one of the very last turns of the game, they come and they go, we finished reviewing the footage, and actually the cerebellum processor didn't get ticked down on one of the turns, so it shouldn't have been in play. And this is right after a turn where he uses the cerebellum processor to draw. He said it was like the third boost card to play the max V with his boom grenade. So I basically just take 13 damage on that turn that I shouldn't have taken, because the cerebellum processor shouldn't have been in play. But also, like, obviously a lot of his decisions changed too. So like the whole game is like super weird at this point. And it turns out that there's like a miscommunication with the judge, that they were reviewing footage, but apparently it takes them quite a while to like cut this, like basically like download everything from the stream and then review the footage. Apparently it's like a bit of a lengthy process.
Yeah, well, because
Um,
like it sounds like you can just like watch the stream and tell you right away, but the streams are actually on a delay, right? They, for the people who doesn't know, the streams are actually like almost an hour delay, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, from my understanding, it's not really the delay that's the problem. It's more that they have to like find the snippet in the recording, then download that recording and then review it. And that takes like 10 to 15 minutes to do. But we weren't like super clear on this. I think there's like a bit of a language barrier going on as well with one of the judges. So like I'm definitely like empathetic to the situation. I think it's just tough. My opponent ended up getting an IP2, because they said like he just got too much advantage and it's the only way to even out the game. And as it turns out, I think I die. I end up living at one because I draw Sync Below, and he has null time zone naming Sync Below, and I'm like, this is how I die, and I end up barely surviving at one with like the last cards in his deck. And I think if he had one more card, I actually just die because he gets one more attack. I'm not entirely sure. It's possible he would have been out like, because he's also out like one card in deck if he draws one more card, so he might not have the boost to play it. But I think I lose, which is kind of scary. Depends what the attack was.
So did you win this game or did you lose this
I
game?
won this game. I won this game because he had an IP2. But if he didn't have the IP2, I would have lost. But also, if he didn't have the cerebellum processor, I definitely win the game because he wouldn't have max beat me and got me from 16 down to 3. Or maybe it was, I took 13. I think I was down to 6 at the end of the turn. So I think I went from 19 to 6.
That's a really weird game.
It's a really weird game. Yeah. So I won. I don't know if I felt super good about it, but I was like, okay, I won. Also a weird game to have on stream. Like it was also like weird because it was on stream. Like I felt like the judge call didn't get resolved that well because they defaulted to the footage rather than like rewind trying to figure out what happened in the game. So all around, just like very odd game.
Yeah, I want to talk about this game a little bit more. It's like, in your opinion, obviously, do you think that feature matches should be treated like slightly differently than like games on like obviously like the regular floor? Because like this is definitely a scenario where your feature match did get treated differently, right? Because they wanted to try and look at the footage to double check what exactly happened, whereas that would never be able to happen at like a non-stream game, essentially.
I think it's really tricky, and like there's probably spots where it's appropriate, like maybe especially on top 8 if you're able to actually just like take the time and pause and see what happens, and depending on how critical it is. But I think after it was all said and done, the way that it resolved, where like the judge call didn't really get properly resolved the first time because there was footage, was just, yeah, not ideal. Like I think that ideally that should have been more properly resolved in the first place, because yeah, like
Yeah,
it's
but
just kind
that's
of weird for it to be like because our game is on feature, it just gets like a different treatment, and the judge call doesn't get resolved as normal.
Yeah, you make a really good point there. I think the difference between top 8 games and the Swiss games, I think that is actually a good point. where I'm actually a really big believer that like even at least at the Swiss rounds where there are other people playing on non-stream matches, people should be treated the same regardless of if it was streamed or not, and judge calls should, in my opinion, should be resolved as though they weren't streamed and there is no footage. Just because like it's just not fair for like other people to either gain or lose advantage just because the game was filmed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because like obviously like the judges might get it wrong, might get it right. That part, you know, like human error happens, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like there was human error to begin with for the judge call to happen, and then judges can also make human error. So like yeah, and in this case it actually kind of like doubled down both ways, right? There was like the players made a human error in the game, the judges made a human error, and that kind of compounded with the stream. And like, I guess you would have never won that game if. Oh, actually, that's kind of weird too, isn't it?
I like, yeah, I don't know.
Because like your opponent would have never gotten the IP2 if they didn't review the footage.
Yes, but it is also possible that when I asked about the cerebellum processor, that
It would have been properly resolved there without them checking the footage.
yeah, potentially it was sort of weird because they should have just like, oh, we can just check the footage, and we're like, sure, that makes sense. And then they came back like 2 minutes later, and like I think the communication there was like, we are checking the footage, but we took it as like the footage was checked, and we're like, okay, cool, we can keep playing. And then it just like wasn't what. Yeah, it was weird.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Well, nothing you can do at that point. You know, the game's progressed. It's not like you guys can just replay the game or anything like that. I guess yeah. Let's continue with the rest of the PT.
Yeah, so I have that experience. I win that game. I get paired into a Syndra after that, which is a very good matchup for me. He wins the die roll and goes second and attacks me for 20 with 4 cards. It's like some Wrath of Retribution turn, and I almost win the game from there, but he has D-Reacts to cover bonds in like a really key spot as well, and I just like can't quite get there. And yeah, even though it's a good matchup, you can still lose good matchups. I think I'm overall pretty happy with how I played in that game, but it happens. At this point, I'm X4, which is, of course, not where you want to be after you started XO at the start of the day. But I'm still very live for prizing, and I get paired into a Verdance last round, Team Blue Pitch member. And it's not a great matchup for Slippy, but the game went very well for me. At one point, I was trying to ask, I was like, so you're at 6 now, right? I was trying to ask how many Earth cards are in his banish, and my opponent goes, do you mean HP or banish? And he's like, oh, actually, they're both 6 right now. And so that's kind of how the game went. I don't think he ever got online, or maybe he got online when I killed him. It was something like that. So yeah, we win those, and I end up coming in 12th overall, which honestly, I'm happy with the result. It's disappointing to not top after such a good start, but in the past, I've had some problems of like going X1 day one and then not caching and getting kind of tilted and just keep losing. And even though it's disappointing to not do better, I'm glad that I was able to kind of like fix the. Ideally, I don't make any mistakes in the first place, but at least I was able to go, okay, I'm not playing very clean. I need to improve. And then I did improve. So that felt like a big success.
Okay, yeah, that's a great input. You feel like you've improved from your past mistakes. That's definitely a good thing. Yeah, so congratulations on 12th place for a PT Singapore. That requeues you for the next PT, right?
Yeah. So top 32, I believe. I'll qualify for PT Yokohama in, I don't know, whatever month, 2026. First PT in 2026.
Amazing.
So
Congrats.
yeah, feels good to be requeued and excited to go to Yokohama.
Okay, and then I guess before we move on from the PT, just a huge shout out to Edison Yu, my personal friend, definitely a friend from the podcast, a local, and he was on Verdance, and he came fourth at the PT, losing to Gravy Bones. That game looks really one-sided from the stream. It was like 40-0 by the end of it, but I think if you watch or if you know the matchup very well, the game was actually like much closer than people assume. Essentially, apparently, from what I've heard from Edison after, was that in the top four, the Gravy player only had three allies left in his deck. And the reason why Edison couldn't clear the last three was because he wasn't turned on. He only had six Earth cards in his Vanish, and he just needed to
Yeah.
draw a Rootbound Carapace. And if he drew this Rootbound Carapace, he could have turned on his Verdance activation and popped his healing potions to pop the Rigor Mortis, and that would have basically locked him the win. But he couldn't draw Rootbound Carapace, so he lost the game.
Yeah, I think it was like a combination of Edison. Things didn't line up very well for Edison, and the Gravy had some pretty sick turns, and between the two of them, the game ended up being a bit of a blowout. But I think that is perhaps not quite as doomed as it may have appeared.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. It was really weird. I was on a Discord call with a couple of my friends that weren't like Flesh and Blood players, and we're all cheering on Edison. Like we're all Edison's personal friends essentially, and they're all just like asking like, "Oh my God, Edison's at like 4 and like Gravy's at 40. Like, is this like how close is this game?" And I'm just like, I think it's kind of close. I'm not exactly sure because like it's kind of impossible to see from like a third person perspective to see who's actually winning this game. The commentators were saying like, "Oh, Edison needs to set up this combo, but he doesn't actually have the combo." But I think at that point he actually was just trying to fatigue the Gravy out instead of comboing off.
Yeah,
So I'm just like, I don't know how to explain it to non-Flesh and Blood players. Actually, I don't even know how to explain this board state to Flesh and Blood players.
yeah. It was definitely a complicated one, and quite a bit going on there. I think there was an interesting question because of how poorly things lined up early, if Edison would have actually been able to kill the Gravy afterwards, or if they would have drawn. Like in the event that he succeeds in fatiguing the Gravy, there's like a world where he doesn't have enough damage, but I'm not
No,
sure.
Edison has enough damage because he has the he can put the healing potions back in his deck with Everbloom,
He had lost a lot of. He had spent like I believe two rampants already though, so it's interesting. It's at least close.
but he had his headpiece, right?
Yeah,
So he can go healing potion, healing potion. He can do double healing potion, double rampant growth. That should be 40 damage, right?
it's 6 life gain, amp 12. Even if you line it up with the Surgeon Aether Tide, that'd be like 13 and 13, assuming Gravy doesn't which is not 40 damage.
Oh, it's only 26. Well, most likely like 20.
It would really depend, like how many, yeah, how many Everbloom lives he has to get back, and how many potions he can get back from them, and then how many rampant growth lives he has by the time he actually fatigues the Gravy. And it's like very hard to say, but I think I think Edison was definitely more behind in the matchup than he probably wanted to be, based on just like kind of clunky draws at the start.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. And when you watch that, when I was watching that game, I was just like, we're waiting for the Gravy to have one off turn, and he never had the off turn.
Yeah, yeah. No, the Gravy also drew quite well. So yeah,
Well, yeah, either way, congratulations, Edison, for your top four finish. It's a good amount of cash and requeues for the next PT as well. So good luck on him on that one.
yeah. Congrats, Edison.
Then let's move on and talk about the Worlds format. I don't think we have a actual confirmation on the Worlds format yet, as the event page isn't up yet. But at least from the infographics we got so far, there's a discussion right now. Is there no draft at Worlds?
Yeah, it certainly looks that way based on the graphics we've seen. It looks like it's classic constructed NLL. Personally, I'm disappointed with this, of course. I think everybody knows that we love limited, and I'm behind them adding LL to Worlds, but I wish that it was tri format. Like the first Worlds was tri format. It was CC, Blitz, and Draft. I don't think Blitz is a good format for Worlds, but I'm on board with them doing something like CCLL Draft. I actually think that sounds pretty fun. I was pretty excited for this actually, but if there's no draft in the mix, that's really sad, I think. And I don't know if this is a trend. I don't know if this is just this event. Um, we will be discussing the PQ changes as well later in the pod, but there's no draft PQs either. Draft PQs are also CC and LL. This could be to get data for Worlds. Another way you could interpret this is maybe Super Slam is like not the best draftable set, and so they decided to keep it out of PQ and Worlds. I really don't know. There's kind of no way for us to know. I'm sort of hoping that that's what it is. That just like maybe Super Slam is not the most competitive draft format, and we miss it this time, and we'll get it again in the future.
But do you know the thing is though, some of the cards that have been spoiled so far feel like draft chaft, you know? Like the
Yeah,
commons in the that's been spoiled so far. So like, man, if this set is like wasn't really meant to be drafted, and then you still include these draft chafts, I'm just like, what? Like, can we just like reprint cards that are good and make it like more like a, like a Crucible set or like a more like a reprint set, like print more Sync Belows, like print more Pummels. Like there's like random commons that like people would want.
yeah, that's a fair point. So yeah, I don't know if we have like the actual answer on what the reasoning for this is or what the direction is. I'm hoping that we will still see draft at tier threes. I suppose there's also the possibility that like if LL gets in the mix, they might choose like two of three formats. So you might have like, I don't know, Worlds is CCLL, then you have like a LL draft, then you have like a CC draft, and blah 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 blah. Like different, like you only pick two, but that's like a direction they could go with this, I guess. But again, just speculation.
Honestly, I would be very okay with that.
Yeah, I think that would be a fine change as well. I just hope that like not every PT has to have draft, but I would be really sad if no more PTs had draft.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And there's like a huge portion of like learning the draft format and everything was like there's a huge edge to be gained, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really important skill, and yeah, playing multiple formats does test players more than just playing all CC. But I think LL and CC are a very similar skill set. There's obviously like more different matchups that you need to be aware of, and you have to know another deck and all of that. So it's not like it's trivial to learn two formats, but I think that draft generally tests pretty different skills from constructed, like both a focus on fundamentals as well as the whole like actual draft portion as well as the draft format itself and the particulars of that set. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And when I got into Flesh and Blood, there being limited and limited being part of PTs was like a huge draw and part of why I even decided to try the game in the first place. So yeah, I would be really sad to see this go, and I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah. I obviously as on the bubble, we want draft and we're very skewed towards the draft format, so yeah. Take our opinion with a grain of salt too, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely people who have been anti draft at tier threes, so or sorry, tier fours. But yeah,
Okay, and let's also talk about the PQ changes. And I feel like this is the biggest change that we had, at least in the most recent news. So this PQ season is going to be October 4th to November 9th for PT Yokohama. So one of the biggest changes, other than the CC and LL format change, so like there is no draft, is that they're going to change it so that you can only play a PQ if you haven't won another PQ yet from that season. So if you already have your qualification, you can't go and play your next PQ. This is a huge change that LSS decided to make.
yeah. And I guess before we talk about this change, well, we can talk about this change. So I personally, we actually haven't talked about this. I'm curious what your take is. I'm personally not a huge fan of this. I think it's sort of like there's been discussion about how ELO is not a good system because it discourages people from playing the game, and like you don't want your OP system to discourage people from the game playing the game. This literally just stops people from playing the game. I'm curious what the rationale behind it is. There's like a few different reasons that I could imagine, and I think that there's maybe some real problems that they want to address, but I kind of question if this is the actual best way to go about addressing those issues.
I think I can definitely see where some of the problem is from the current system and the reasons why they changed it to this system. I think we have to preface this conversation by saying people that like we kind of talk to and like are in our social circle definitely are the people who win the PQ multiple times and keep playing it and sometimes win multiple PQs, right? So like Yuki, you're definitely in that group of people of like
Yeah.
you're the top 1% of players in this game that like are gonna have the chance to win maybe more than one gold foil, more than one invite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think for the majority of the people, this change isn't that relevant, except for the fact that you now cannot get eliminated from a player that already has an invite.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the big change.
So I think the biggest incentive for this, I'm not gonna say either if I'm like against or for this change, but the biggest incentive is that there is now gonna be less feels bad for the like not like the current PT competitor level players, but the people who are, you know, trying to grind their way up to the PT or like at least attend these events to maybe have a chance to get a PT invite. If they go to the later events, they're gonna be having a little bit more of a chance to top eight this event. They're gonna have a little bit more of a chance to qualify for the PQ. And I think that is a net positive for the people who aren't as currently invested in the game.
Yeah, that is that is a fair point. I think that I think that that is true to some extent. I also think though that like and again like everybody part of the problem with like part of the challenge in talking about this is that everybody's circumstances and like local community and PQ scene is a little bit different. But I also feel like the reality is like across all the PQ seasons that we've had, I think I've won multiple PQs like twice.
But Yuki, you have to understand this, okay? Last season for PT Singapore, you and Edison killed a PT not in our local area, in someone else's local area.
Right, but if the problem so this is kind of like what I want to get to the bottom of, right? Like if the problem is with the invite and they don't like how many invites get lit on fire, like there is also the possibility of passing invites down further. Like rather than like cuz already invites pass down from first down to second, it's easy enough to make it pass down to third and fourth and go off of standings or make those players play a match for it or I don't think it is that hard to implement something like that. To me, that just kind of seems like a better solution. If the issue is around invites, because I think that like the other side of this is like it's like easy to be like, oh, whatever named or well-known player that tends to win multiple events like no longer gets to go and like farm their PQs is a lot of the narrative. But I think there's also the side of like we have a local that started the game within the last year, spiked a PQ on Fang. Awesome achievement. Huge congrats to him. We were all like super happy to see him do that. But after that win, it's like, well, you don't get to play any more PQs. And that kind of sucks. I just feel like PQs are such a big like community event, and I like participating in them. And again, I can't speak on behalf of other people, but like personally, after I win a PQ, I'm majority of the time picking up other decks and playing other decks that I don't have that many reps on, or that I want to learn, or that I want to try out. And it's just like a way for me to get tournament experience on other decks. I'm not necessarily there trying my absolute hardest to like maximize win percentage for every PQ. And I realize like this is me. This is not everybody, and there's no way to like enforce that people act in this way. But yeah, to me it seems like a shame to like not give people the opportunity to do that, and also to potentially punish some people that do spike their first PQ and then they don't get to practice more.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair point. I think to go against that point specifically about like a local that usually doesn't, play that much, in your local area, there isn't actually going to be that many PQs unless you travel for them, right? So like for example, like in our area, Vancouver area, we're going to have two PQs total. Unless you want to travel to the island, then that's your third PQ. And then for us to get more than that, we need to travel to the States.
It's true.
So I think for the average person that isn't a flesh and blood grinder, I feel like this change isn't actually going to affect them. That's my take on it. It's like if they win a PQ on their first week and there's going to be one more PQ, they're going to miss one PQ. I think that's gonna that I think that's the reality of what's gonna happen to most people.
But there just are areas that have way more PQs.
Yes, I understand there are going to be areas with way more PQs, but what I'm trying to say is like I feel like the people who are going to get barred from this change is mostly not going to be the new player that's going to be winning the first week PQs. I feel like it's going to be a lot of the current PT grinders that are going to win the first weeks of PQs and then get barred from, you know, taking invites from people who have never been to the PT before. I think
Yeah.
that's going to be the more of the reality of it. And I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm kind of like split on this exact on this exact decision. I feel like they maybe could have done something better than exactly this, but at least from my point of view, I'm glad it's this one because I want a I want to get my PT invite for exactly Yokohama so I can go to Japan. So I'm kind of glad like if you win one, I don't have to go through you in top eight again.
That's fair. Yeah. I don't know. I think that there's probably better solutions, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the reason why this change got implemented is there is these after your PQ seasons, there should be some a not an interview. What are they called? Surveys? Yeah, there's a survey. There's a survey that gets emailed to players that participated in PQs. I have a feeling that maybe that had something to do with it, where obviously the people who win multiple pro quests, they're gonna get outnumbered by the people who don't win the pro quests, and is gonna have these like similar experiences of losing to the same people over and over again, and maybe that had something to do with this decision. Don't quote me, I'm not sure, but like I have a feeling that it's one of those like survey type things like why they may have like changed something about this because like it kind of makes no sense to bar people if they can just pass down the invites as you said earlier, right? So like
Hmm.
why would they try and bar people who's already won a PQ event?
Yeah, but I also feel like if the point of the PQ is to qualify for the PT, like, okay, if the issue is that I don't know. I just feel like if the issue is like one of I want to qualify for the PT and like I can't qualify for the PT as easily because like the stronger players or the players that have won who on average will be the stronger players are participating, it's sort of like you're gonna have to play against those people at the PT. So like I don't know. I'm not like entirely sure this is overall a positive. I think that like I like to think that having people involved in seasons and in their locals is a good thing. Like I think it is like a good thing that we play at our armories and people playing at armories get to play with us. I think that is just like good for our local scene, and I sort of feel similarly about PQs. And I understand that like that's my perspective, and maybe there's resentment there that I'm not aware of. But by and large, the vibe that I get from people when I talk to them and interact with them is that it is like overall positive to interact with them through these events.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Yeah, it is super weird for you to get barred from an event. But I don't know. Every local is gonna be different, so it's kind of hard to say. I think our local scene in particular is like very friendly, and we also have just a lot of strong players in our area. So it's like I don't think this change is like targeted to. It doesn't really change much for our area in particular, right? It's gonna bar some people from playing their second PQs, and I guess this change specifically, I think, will affect the the group of guys that are gonna, do the road trip to Seattle, and then, the next week can go back to Seattle and then Vancouver, then Vancouver Island, and like hit up like 7 PQs in one season or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of sad because like I like going to Seattle and seeing those guys or seeing those people down there and connecting with them because I feel like we've been going enough seasons that you just get to know people down there, and it's always like a friend. Like to me, it feels like a friendly rivalry. Again, are there people who feel differently, or is there resentment? There very well could be resentment among some of those players, but by and large, interactions I have feel very friendly and positive, and I think missing out on that to me feels like a shame.
Mm, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Like that's the thing I'm gonna miss the most is just like getting to go on those road trips with everyone, hang out, go see, the people in Seattle, like Pankaj, like I have quite a few friends down there, and I just probably won't get to do that as much now, and that sucks. That's really what I miss. For me, it's not about I could care less about the gold foil and the prizing. It's more like the experience of getting to go and play those tournaments and interact with the community. That's the piece that makes me the most sad.
I think that's a really strong point. Yeah, I really hope they can change something about this. Like, I feel like I heard something on like Twitter that maybe they changed something like, oh, if you won a PQ before, you can't top eight the event anymore, or something like that. So like, you don't take the top eight prizing from them either, like the top eight promos essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, definitely there are people who have, 4, 5, 6 battering from a pole from last season. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
battering from pulp is not a cheap promo either. So
Yeah. No. No. For sure. Yeah, I think there's like some real concerns, and again, like everybody's situation is different. So this isn't if you're listening to this and you're saying and you're not necessarily agreeing with like my perspective or what I have to say, that's valid, and I think you're entitled to your opinion. But I'm just saying, try to get my own perspective and why it disappoints me. It makes me a little bit sad. I think another side of this that I think is unfortunate. I don't know how like big of an effect this is, but they're trying to introduce Living Legend this PQ season, and I think by having this like you can only win one PQ, you kind of make this whole thing more awkward. Where like people already have to buy into LL decks, or at least many people do. There's some people that have cards from back then, but there's a lot of people that have been joined the game more recently and need to buy into these LL decks, and there's just this whole awkward thing of like if I buy into an LL deck and practice an LL deck, then win a CC event, I might not even get to play with my LL deck because like you can't even play armories with it, at least not in our area. So you just like don't get to play your LL event. Or I've also heard the sentiment from some people of like I really like CC and I don't really know if I like LL, so like I don't know how badly I want to like play an LL PQ and then not get to play any CC PQs. Like that's kind of a feels bad. So like maybe this is just like a timing thing, but I think that it is weird to have two formats and being trying to introduce a new format that hasn't necessarily succeeded at gaining a lot of traction yet, and then also creating some like weird incentives around just all of that.
honestly, I agree with you completely on that one. I'm just like, man, LLCC split format, and then if you win, you can't play. It's just like, does that drive away traffic from these LLPQs? Like, it's already like such a barrier to buy a whole new Flesh and Blood deck, and it's like a lot of the cards that are good in LL are just like not. They're just like not the same, right? Like the format's quite different.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, often the hero you're playing just most of the heroes you're playing just aren't legal. Like if you want to play like Dromai and LL, just 0% of that translates over. Like you can play like your snatches or whatever, but it's like not where the cost of the deck is.
And like the good decks in LL are like nowhere near the same heroes as like the good decks in CC. Like if it was like if you could like convert some of your CC decks into LL, like maybe that would make a little bit more sense. But like no one in CC that I can currently think of is good enough to be played in LL, right? Like maybe Gravy Bones. I haven't seen Gravy Bones before, so
Dash IO is the big one
oh, okay, yeah, Dash IO makes sense.
because you get High Octane and potentially Toma Findal. But yeah. Oh, and I guess Ira won the Battle Harden in Singapore.
Oh yeah, the crazy Zephyrinito Iroh deck that never got to see the light of day in CC.
Yeah, yeah. So there definitely like are inroads into this format. I would like to talk more about LL on the podcast at some point or on the Patreon. It's definitely something I'm gonna be looking to do as we get closer to that PQ season. But yeah, there are inroads to this format with some CC decks. It will depend a lot on your collection and which heroes you play and all of that. But I think that there are reasonable ways to engage with LL. But all of that being said, it just feels so weird to create this system that just like can potentially really punish players for buying into an LL deck. Or even if you buy into your LL deck and you're like excited to go play like 3-4 LL PQs, you win the first one, great, and then you're just like, what do I do with this LL deck? Now I have literally nowhere to play it unless I want to like I can like go home and play Talishar with my LL deck to like practice for Worlds or like it's just strange.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I feel like it's not gonna affect that many people though. Like I think for the majority of people, you're gonna build an LL deck for a PQ season. You're gonna play like two, three. I don't even think there's gonna be three LL PQs you could go to in like a reasonable distance for most people though.
That's fair, but
Like if there, let's say there's like six PQs you can go to, I'd assume like four of them is gonna be CC, two of them is gonna be LL, right? Like if you go to one of it and you win the first one, so be it. It's gonna be one in like 40 people in your community or 30 people in your community. I feel like it's not gonna affect that many people in reality.
so like I don't disagree that it's not going to affect that many people because most of the people aren't going to win PQs, but it's also just sort of begs the question of like who is this? I guess I see who this is helping, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think for a fact it's gonna help me. Like I'm not a player that would like typically win more than one PQ per season, and like I'm not out there trying to like play all the PQs I can travel to unless I really want to qualify or I get dragged into like a carpool situation like last season. But like like I think this helps me because mostly because I want to qualify for exactly this one. I like this change like because then it just helps. It just helps me if I wanted to qualify for this event there are just less stronger players by the end of the season if I'm still not qualified. And I'm not going to be sad if I can't play any more BQs because I'm I my goal is that I want to qualify for the PT this time. It's really weird for me, specifically for myself, because like if I don't want to qualify for the PT for that specific PQ, I actually just like don't play decks that can win the events, and I play the decks I like from the get go. So like I brought Dash IE to like three events last PQ season into the Aurora meta where my win percentage into Aurora was like sub 5%, and I'm just like I'm gonna try and top 8 this event, and then I'm gonna get queued into Edison, Yuki, or Ellie, and immediately lose to them. This is okay. I'm definitely an outlier in this scenario, but yeah, it's really weird. Like this change doesn't actually affect that many people, but or like it doesn't actually like positively affect that many people, in my opinion. But this specific chain actually, I think, benefits me, which is really weird.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, I don't know. So I think it's one of those things. I don't know if there's a right answer or a wrong answer, but hopefully it gives you some food for thought and different perspectives on the topic. I hope they find a more elegant solution. I feel like one that prevents people from playing is usually not the most desirable outcome, but that's just me.
No, I agree with you. They need to just do something that doesn't bar people from playing the game, but like still solves whatever the issue is at hand that they can solve. I'm not sure what this exact issue is. I feel like they haven't actually made like a public announcement of why this change has been made, right?
No, they haven't. There was like some tweet by Trevor Baker, who I believe runs OP, and there was talk about there was sort of like the implication that this is linked to OP changes for 2026. Where they've also mentioned getting rid of ELO, for example, and other player incentives. Is I think the wording that was used. Whatever that means, I don't know. And apparently, there's discussion about this being addressed in a dev talk at some point. So, maybe we'll get more clarity. Maybe with the full system, this makes more sense. I'm trying to keep an open mind to it. At the moment, it gives me a little bit of pause. I don't think it's the end of the world or anything. I will be sad if I don't get to play. Well, I probably just won't get to play as many PQs.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely affects you. This change definitely affects you. I guess the last thing to talk about these PQ changes is it's kind of weird that they did this change, and then there are people who are already qualified for the PT Yokohama, right? So the top 32 of the last PT qualify for Yokohama already, but are they barred from this event?
They are not. I asked. Who did I ask? I emailed Organized Play about this, and they clarified that people are not banned because the reasoning given was that they didn't want to blindside people who topped the PT with no notice, which kind of makes sense. I think is kind of reasonable, but it is also an implication that in the future it is possible that topping the PT prevents you from playing ProQuests.
So I guess what they actually just want to move to, at least from what this email is saying, is like if you already have your PTM light, you just can't play PQs.
I think that is what they are aiming for, is what it sounds like.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Man, this conversation is so interesting, at least on our specific pod, just because like you're qualified, you're the 30 one of the 32 people who is actually qualified and is affected by this, but like man, the majority of people did not get hit by this. But yeah, it's just so funny to me that like you're part of that that top echelon of like the 0.1% of people who is like specifically like super affected by every little change from this PQ season.
Yeah, definitely. And like, to be fair, if the overwhelming community consensus is just we like this and this is a good change and this is better, like I'm kind of willing to accept that is fair. But yeah, I don't know. From my perception from talking and interacting with people is that that is not necessarily the case, that everyone feels that way. I'm sure there are people that like this change. I hope that there's some people that like this change.
And also, Yuki, all of your friends are PT top 8 players, PT top 32
I've even
players.
talked to locals about this, though. Locals aren't PT. Well, some of them are, I guess.
Yeah, it's this just disproportionately affects the good players in the game. But it also is like a weird change I wanted to say was like Flesh and Blood is not a to say it like pretty bluntly. It's not like a casual friendly game, right? This is like a game that's like kind of built towards this like grinder mindset. The like the people who want to play TCG very competitively and like are very stoic type of players. And this change feels like it's just targeting that core group of people that like kind of made this game successful.
Yeah, yeah. That is kind of the shame, right? It's like, I don't know. Usually your people, it just feels funny to like, I don't know, punish is the right word.
Yeah, we win a PQ. You get to play no more Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, it's just like it feels like you're just like making it hard on the people who are the most enfranchised with your game, which I don't know. Anyways, I think we've talked enough about this one. We're kind of going in circles, but yeah, hopefully we'll come into focus with the dev talk, or this gets looked at again and they find a better solution, or who knows, maybe people will be a big fan of this, and yeah, I'm just wrong. It's possible.
Yeah, I just wrap it up then.
Yeah, I think we can just wrap it up here. So thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Good luck to you if you have events coming up, whether that's skirmish or I know that there's calling Kansas around the corner. I will be going to that. So yeah, good luck to you if you have events coming up. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy spoiler season and the kind of down season that we have. It's nice to have a break sometimes as well. But that's going to be a wrap for us. You can find us on social media. Jay is at Ueda J, and I'm at Yukili Bender on Twitter. You can also find me on Blue Sky. I'm at Yukili Bender on Blue Sky as well. And if you want to check out our Patreon, we are patreon.com/slash on the bobble. Lots of content, deck techs, and stuff like that up there. The Slippy deck list and sideboard guide with all the matchup notes is on Patreon right now. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. And I'll be posting a how to play guide within the next week or so. Probably by the time this is posted, the how to play guide will be up as well. So yeah, if you want to check any of that out, you can. And I guess we need to get better about this, but thank you to all of our patrons. I should have shouted you out sooner. We need to build this into the show notes a little bit better. But yes, thank you to all of our patrons. We couldn't be doing this without you, and we really appreciate your support. It's going to be a wrap. Thanks for listening. We'll see you all next week.
Okay, sign off. I have a couple things to say about the sign off, or in the sign off, I guess is a better way of saying it. There's two things. Number one, man, I've been playing so much Shadowverse. It's not healthy. The game
Is the
is
game good?
no. It's okay. I won't. I don't want to say it's not good, but it's definitely a game that is. It's basically just Hearthstone. If you've played Hearthstone, but it's like the first two sets of Hearthstone, or yeah, it's like the first couple of sets of Shadowverse. They just rebooted the game, and I feel like Shadowverse did a really good job of making the games very simple and quick, and you can play like a game in like 5 to 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm,
So like
mm-hmm.
it's so easy to just requeue and just like click buttons and just like throw your cards at your opponent. But oh my god, well, I don't know what they did to that game, but it's just so addictive. But it's not engaging, and it's so
So you think the
tilting.
game's bad, but you can't stop playing it?
Yes, yes.
That sounds really healthy.
Oh yeah, it's. The more I play the game, the more I'm just like mad at every card in the game, and but I just can't. Like I keep on clicking the play next match button. Like right before we were recording this episode, I was playing Shadowverse, and I'm probably gonna go back to playing Shadowverse after this too. But like, oh my god, this game is. Oh, it's grueling.
I see. I've also been playing another card game. I've been playing Gundam TCG or Gundam CG. I believe they've rebranded it. Um, yeah, game's not bad. Pretty decent for a Bandai dude basher.
Is it Bandai TC? Like, is it a Bandai Namco game? Like, is it produced by Bandai?
I believe so.
Okay. And is it just set one so far?
Yeah, set one just came out. I played a starter deck only event, and then set one came out. Elliot, there's very limited product. Elliot and I bought a box and hit. We each bought one, and we hit some very good pulls. So we're able to sell those shinies and buy pretty much the rest of the game, which is pretty good. Um, but yeah, no, game's been pretty fun to just like explore and play something else. I don't think it is as good of a game as Flesh and Blood, but it is more fun than I thought it would be. I'll say that much.
Hmm. Just a heads up. At least from past data, Bandai games get power crept very quickly. So
Oh, I know, I know.
um, it's there is a I think my recommendation for playing Bandai games is like have a point where you like stop buying new sets, or at least like upgrading your decks, and then keep the current decks that you have now in like a box. And like if you have like 2 to 3 decks or 4 decks or so, just like make a battle box esque thing with it, and then like just like eternalize that format in a box, and then you can play it whenever with your friends that know that format. Instead of like trying to like keep on buying the new stuff every 4 months or whatever that Bandai pushes a new set out. And
Yeah.
that's what I like doing with the Bandai games, is being like, oh, I'm gonna play Digimon. You know what? Instead of like keeping up with this game every 4 months, I'm just gonna eternalize one of my decks and then just play with my friend that's also have eternalized that format.
Yeah, totally. I think we might just do the like early card game experiment in some deck building, play a few events, have a bit of fun with the game kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, playing card games should be casual, anyways, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of fun to just have something to do in the mini off season we have. Although I probably should also be exploring LL because I don't know what's good in that format.
Yeah, we get to do some disgusting Zephyr Needle stuff with Ira.
Yeah, that sounds pretty sweet.
Choose
Briar also
three.
seems really good. You gotta play Nimby. You have
Picture
Regrowth
blue, choose
Shock.
three.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Zephyr Needle's so toxic.
Yeah, Zephyr Needle's kind of broken.
Oh, okay, then I guess we'll just wrap it up here then.
Yep. Thanks for
That's good.
listening, everyone.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you next week.